You've been there, right? A big, exciting new project kicks off at work, everyone's pumped, and then it just kind of fizzles out. It happens all the time. So today, we're going to dive into what I think is the single most important factor that decides if these big changes actually stick or if they just fail. And, spoiler alert, it all comes down to leadership.
So, let's just start with that big question right off the bat. Why? Why do so many of these ambitious projects, new software rollouts, complete digital transformations, why do they fall flat on their face? You think it's the tech, right? Or maybe the budget, or a bad timeline. But honestly, the real answer might not be what you think.
In this quote right here, it absolutely nails the core problem. When you look at these high-stakes changes, like a big AI implementation, the failures are almost never about the tech itself. It's about a lack of leadership. Specifically, you've got executives who aren't on the same page and, well, weak governance, which is really just a fancy way of saying nobody knows who's in charge of making decisions. I mean, think about it. A company could pour millions into some amazing new AI tool, but if the sales VPs can't even agree on how to use it and there's no clear process to sort things out, that shiny new tool is just going to sit there and collect dust. This is the problem we're digging into.
Okay, so that leads us perfectly into our first major point, what we're calling the executive mandate. And I want you to think of this like the concrete foundation of a house. You could have the most beautiful design in the world, the best materials, but without that solid foundation, the whole thing is just going to crumble. And let's be super clear about this. I'm talking about executive sponsorship being the single most critical factor for success. You can have the slickest tech, the smartest team, and endless budget, but if you don't have active, visible support from the very top, that big initiative is pretty much doomed from the start. It is, without a doubt, the #1 predictor of whether a change will work.
So what does great sponsorship actually look like in the wild? Because it's not just slapping a C-level name on a PowerPoint slide. It's about tangible actions. Great sponsors are seen. They're out there talking about the change, explaining why it's so important over and over again. They put their money where their mouth is, making sure the project has the resources it needs. And this last one is so crucial. They use the new stuff themselves. That sends a message that's louder than any email or town hall ever could. It says, this is real, and we're all in this together.
But look, this can't be a one-person show, right? One executive sponsor, no matter how great, can't do it all. For change to really take root and grow, that leadership energy has to flow down through every level of the company. It's got to cascade. So let's break down how that actually works.
This right here lays it out perfectly. It's basically a 3-tiered system where everyone has a vital part to play. Up top, you've got the C-level folks. Their job is the big picture. Set the vision, get the resources, and build the rules of the road, the governance. Then you have your managers in the middle. They are the essential translators, right? They take that big vision and make it real for their teams, clearing away obstacles and showing everyone what the new way of working looks like. And finally, you have your frontline leaders. Your senior team members, your shift supervisors, they're on the ground providing that day-to-day coaching, peer support, and feeding back what's actually working and what's not. You see how they all connect? Each layer is totally dependent on the others.
All right, so we've got the structure down. We know who needs to be involved. But honestly, that's only half the battle. Just as important, maybe even more so, is the style. It's the how. How do leaders get people to genuinely embrace a change, not just, grudgingly comply with it because they have to?
While the most powerful approach, especially when you're talking about huge shifts like digitalization, is something called transformational leadership. Now, this isn't about barking orders from the top down. Nope. This is all about inspiring and empowering your people, making them feel like they're co-creating the future with you. The classic example, of course, is Satya Nadella at Microsoft. He didn't just issue memos. He fundamentally shifted the entire culture by getting everyone excited about a new vision of collaboration and a growth mindset.
And this leadership style is built on 4 key pillars. First up is idealized influence, which is just a fancy way of saying walk the talk. Be the role model for the change you want. Second, you've got inspirational motivation. This is about painting that exciting picture of the future, giving people a compelling why. Third is intellectual stimulation. This means you're encouraging your team to challenge the status quo, to get creative, to experiment. And finally, number 4, individualized consideration. This is huge. It's about remembering that everyone's a human, that change hits people differently, and that you need to be there to support them as individuals.
Now, let's just quickly zero in on 2 of those to really see how they work together. Think of inspirational motivation as the heart of the change. It's the why. It connects to our emotions, it gives us a sense of purpose.
On the other hand, intellectual stimulation is the head. It gets our brains firing, tapping into our creativity and logic to figure out the how. To make a real transformation happen, you absolutely need both. You need to capture people's hearts and their minds.
So if there's one thing you take away from all this, it should be this. Successful change is not just about structure, and it's not just about style. They are two sides of the exact same coin. You need that three-tiered leadership structure to make sure everyone is aligned and moving in the same direction. And you need leaders at every single one of those levels who know how to inspire and empower their people. Real, lasting change only happens when those two things come together.
And that brings us to our final thought for today. I want you to take a second and think about your own organization. I'll just leave you with this one question to chew on. What is the single biggest leadership gap in your company's approach to change? Is it at the very top, a lack of that visible sponsorship? Is it that middle manager link that's kind of broken? Or is it the style, leaders who are commanding instead of inspiring? Because finding that gap, well, that's the very first step to making your next big change a massive success. Thanks for tuning in.